Welcome to The Power of Earth with Comfort by Climate Master. This Clean Heat podcast series shows you how you can save up to 70% on your energy bills with geothermal heating, cooling, and hot water, and how utility incentives and tax credits can pay for a large portion of your new geothermal system. The air, water, earth, and sun awes us. These awesome forces of nature can provide 1,000 times more energy than we need. You and me are also forces of nature. Women and mankind, all earthkind, are the fifth element. We are literally changing the world. Awesome Earthkind's geothermal heating and cooling podcast series, The Power of Earth with Comfort by Climate Master, shows you how you can tap into the energy under your feet to heat and cool your home, create hot water, and save up to 70% on your energy bills. Ding, 3, 2, 1. Welcome, Scott, to the Awesome Earthkind podcast, and this particular one is on geothermal heating and cooling with the Power of Earth with Comfort, brought to you by Climate Master. If you would, please let us know who you are, what you do, and where you live, what kind of stuff you do for NYSERDA.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Ron. It's always great to talk to you. So I'm Scott Smith. I'm one of the program managers on the NYSERDA Clean Heating and Cooling team, the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority. And our team's task is to accelerate the decarbonization of heating of buildings in the state of New York. I live up in Albany, and just super happy to be doing the work that I'm doing.
That's great. So, Scott, why is New York State moving to clean energy? Could you give us a sense?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think the simplest answer is that clean energy is a win-win-win, right? So customers save money, especially if we do it right. As a state, we create jobs and stimulate the economy, and we can improve the environment, reduce our carbon emissions. So Governor Andrew Cuomo's nation-leading climate and clean energy agenda, that's outlined within the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, requires a 40% greenhouse gas reduction emissions by 2030 and 85% economy-wide emissions reductions by 2050. As well as a transition to carbon neutral across all the sectors of the economy. So that's sort of what guides, our work. And if we're going to do that, we have to drive electrification into our entire building stock. So new buildings, existing buildings, because buildings are one of the leading sources of greenhouse gas emissions in New York. And if we switch building heating, in particular, to energy efficient electric heat pumps, we replace fossil fuels, reduce the amount of carbon emissions. And one of the things that we're going to do under the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act is increasingly decarbonize the grid, make the grid carbon neutral, add more renewables, add storage. So when the grid is carbon neutral and you heat with electricity, you have carbon neutral heating. And I saw this coming a few years ago. Been with NYSERDA about over 20 years now, and decided that it was such important work that I would focus the rest of my career on it. I'm kind of a thermodynamics geek. I'm a chemical engineer by training, and heat pumps are just wicked cool.
Yeah, so you, like I said, you've been doing it for a long time, man. So why did you move into clean energy? Just because it was cool, or was there other forces at play?
Oh, well, I mean, I've sort of been, I guess I had an epiphany as a chemical engineering undergrad at WPI that, that environmental justice and improving the environment was my calling. Did some environmental remediation for the beginning of my career. I thought that might be where I fit in. And then I found NYSERDA, and I've been working on clean energy ever since.
Cool. So could you give us some examples of the kinds of programs that New York State's involved with, the clean energy actions that the state's involved with and what you're working on?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mentioned the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, and there's a bunch of different actions and goals that are coming out of will come out of that. But a few just to mention, we're ramping up the installation of large scale renewables like onshore wind and offshore wind, storage, and other things that can make the electricity sector carbon free. We're investing in the infrastructure that we need to make the vast majority of our vehicles in New York all electric. And mostly what we're talking about in this conversation is increasing our investment in building electrification.
Yeah. So, okay. So, what are the goals of the New York State Clean Heat Program, Scott?
Yeah, definitely. I'll start with a little background on the New York State Clean Heat Program, and I'll talk about the goals. So, beginning in April of last year of 2020, the New York State utilities launched the New York State Clean Heat statewide heat pump program. They're going to be providing over $450 million in incentives for projects. And then alongside that investment, NYSERDA is investing an additional $230 million to develop the market. So it's roughly a $700 million total investment by New York between now and 2025. And a bunch of different goals. I'll sort of mention the high level ones. We're collectively looking to achieve, and this is going to be a little esoteric, but about 4 teraBTUs of energy savings, which equates to about 130,000 buildings with heat pumps over the next 5 years. That's going to help us create 14,000 jobs across the whole heat pump supply chain. One of the things we need to do is bring down the cost. So we're targeting cost reductions of about 25%. And we're going to increase the shipments of heat pumps to New York by 50% above 2019 levels, and have most of those being cold climate capable.
Outstanding. And so, how do New York State residents access the programs? Where do they find information?
Well, there's a lot of information on NYSERDA's website. The incentives flow through qualifying contractors, and there's a list of participating contractors on our website. The utilities are actually administering the incentives for projects, and so each of the utilities websites has program information on it. There's a page on our website that sort of collects it all together. So if you go to find a program, you look for New York State Clean Heat, you'll be able to access the statewide list of eligible contractors and then links to the utility program pages.
Excellent. And your website is?
Sorry, NYSERDA.ny.gov.
NYSERDA, right? There we go.
Yeah, NYSERDA.ny.gov.
Excellent. And once they get there, they search for clean heat.
Find a program is one of the options on our main page, and then there's a list of alphabetical programs, and they would look for New York NYS Clean Heat.
Excellent. So, what would you say would be one unique tip, tool, tactic that most people need to know but don't?
Well, I'm going to go to the geeking out on thermodynamics part of this for a second. So, I don't think people appreciate what heat pumps are, that the fact that they're so efficient and why. And so, the real thing that's for me very cool about them is they don't actually create heat. So if you have a furnace or a boiler or anything that consumes fossil fuel, you're actually burning that fuel to create the heat in the appliance. What heat pumps do actually is they don't make that, and there's a natural inefficiency to that, right? Anytime you're combusting a fossil fuel, you lose some of that energy in the combustion process. Heat pumps actually move heat around and concentrate it, and so they completely eliminate that loss due to combustion. And because of the technology for concentrating and moving the heat, depending on the heat pump type, they're 2 to 4 times as efficient as the most efficient fossil fuel system. And so the environmental benefits are obviously important, and they're a big part of why we are doing what we do. But they also provide bill savings. They can help you make your building more comfortable. You're not burning fossil fuels on site, so there's less health impacts. It's safer, arguably, in a lot of ways, because you don't have combustible explosive fuels in your home or your building. And so these are all priorities for NYSERDA and the state as we increase access to these smarter and clean energy choices.
Outstanding. Yeah, and the 2 types then of heat pumps, if you would.
Sure. Yeah. So there are the two major types: air source heat pumps and ground source heat pumps, and they're differentiated by where they're what medium they're using to extract and reject heat. Um, Air source heat pumps do it from the air. There are cold climate heat pumps that do that very effectively down to low temperatures. But ground source heat pumps actually exchange heat with the ground, which is a lot more efficient. And so ground source heat pump systems are actually the most efficient heating and cooling system that you can get for any type of building.
And that's because once you go down a few feet, the Earth's constant temperature is there, right? And you got like basically 50, 55 degrees in this part of the world that you're starting with, right?
Absolutely, and it's a lot more efficient to take heat out of any temperature water than it is any temperature air. But the temperature in the ground, as you mentioned, is constant, and it's a lot easier to take heat out of 60-degree water than it is, say, 0-degree air.
Yeah, great. And so on the heat pump piece, you were saying that the goal is like 125,000 buildings in the next 5 years.
130,000 by 2025, and then we have looked forward to how do we meet our goal of 40% carbon reduction by 2030 and 85% by 2050, and we're going to have to significantly ramp up penetration of heat pumps to get to those goals. We'll be publishing a buildings electrification roadmap at some point later this year that lays out a vision for how do we achieve the goal by 2030, and then a carbon neutral buildings roadmap that's going to lay out the vision to 2050. But in any of the scenarios you look at, we're going to need to see penetrations between 50 and 100% of the heating system sold in New York being heat pumps in the relatively near future.
So that's both new and existing.
Yes, both new and existing. Basically, those numbers I was quoting of 50 to 100% are this percentage of heating system sales in New York, whether that's for new buildings or existing buildings.
Yeah, so basically, it's first all new buildings are going to have to go towards this route to be able to hit the goals, and then existing buildings, as they're replacing their equipment, need to be moving in this same place. So,
absolutely, yep.
Okay, cool. So, what's the one thing you're most energized about today, Scott?
Well, I know the subject of today is ground source heat pumps, and I haven't yet gotten a ground source heat pump system, but I did get a heat pump for Christmas, and I'm super energized about it. It was my Christmas present this year, actually. It's in my family room. We had baseboard electric heat because the ductwork in our house doesn't reach that room, and it was never comfortable in the winter. And it is now. We spend a lot more time there than we used to. It's where we by design would spend a lot of our time, but we didn't because it was cold. And not only were we more comfortable, but since Christmas, so for those who are watching, it's February 3rd. And since Christmas, we've already saved $100 on our heating bill, which is pretty cool.
Awesome. Yeah. Really cool. Congratulations. Nice Christmas present.
Yeah, it still has a bow on it and everything.
Well, I think that's one of the things that people should recognize is that, look, we're all in different places along the spectrum, and wherever we're starting from, there's a step that we can take that makes a difference. And if you can't go all the way, the best right now is absolutely to go geothermal for a whole house system, heat, cool, hot water, use that as your main heating, as your only heating system, and have solar on your home supplying that energy. So now you're 100% clean and green, and once you're paid off the systems, you're basically heating, cooling, hot water, and electric for free. Add an electric vehicle, and if the systems are big enough, now you can actually do all your energy needs, all for clean, green, zero carbon, and eventually zero cost. But in the meantime, we can all take a step, and that's a wonderful thing, Scott. And that's, I think, a great piece of this program is that it lets everybody start with where they are, figure out what their most effective next step is, and maybe it is just an air source heat pump in a particular room that was never hot or cool enough, never comfortable, and as you got for your Christmas present, that's a great step in the right direction. So, and then you can add on from there. So fantastic.
Absolutely. And if I hadn't mentioned, I'm super excited to eventually get a ground source heat pump system. Just got to figure out the logistics of the investment on my end, as everyone does.
Yep, and that's one of the things, that's great about this program as well, is that anybody that wants to evaluate, you can have a free evaluation about the opportunity and just listen into the webinar and find out exactly how you can get a cost-effective ground source heat pump, what are the costs, what the incentives are, how to make it happen, and plan it out for yourself. And if you can't do it today, figure out when you can build it into your home in the future. So Fantastic. Anything else you wanted to mention today, Scott?
Well, I think the one thing that we didn't talk about that I just want to mention briefly is, there are opportunities to reduce the amount of heating that you need in your home through insulation and air sealing. And if we just simply electrify everybody's homes without doing a lot of that work, we're gonna be using a lot more energy than we need to, and it's going to be hard to have the infrastructure to support that. So it's really important. I would recommend anybody who's doing a heat pump system to look into that and look into ways to make their home more efficient before they put in their heat pump system.
Yeah, that's a really excellent point, is that the first step is efficiency, because the least cost energy is the energy that we don't use. So weatherize, put in insulation, deal with those leaky windows or doors, and close up those gaps, and a bunch of other things. And that's another thing that's great about the state, is investing a tremendous amount in efficiency as well, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, great. Good points. All right, share a piece of parting guidance and the best way people can contact you if you'd like them to.
Sure. Well, I guess so. That insulation and air sealing in your house was part of my parting guidance, but I will instead reinforce something that you said, which is, there is an opportunity for people to do solar and a ground source heat pump system, insulate their homes, maybe get an electric vehicle and use, the awesome power of the earth to accomplish all of their energy needs and be carbon neutral. And certainly, that's where we're heading as an economy, as a state. For people to contact me, I think the best thing for people to do is to reach out to me by email. So that would be scott.smith@nyserda.ny.gov. And I will respond as soon as I can.
Scott Smith, outstanding. Thank you so much, sir.
Thanks a lot for having me, Ron.
Have a great day. All right, Scott, do you have we call them a quantum quote, an inspirational quote that kind of shifts people's perspectives?
I'm not sure if this qualifies as shifting perspectives, but people often tell me how crazy I am. My quote is, people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.
Outstanding. Thank you, sir. Thank you for joining today's podcast, The Power of Earth with Comfort by Climate Master. Please go to our website, awesomeearthkind.com, to register for a very special free geothermal web class. In The Power of Earth with Comfort by Climate Master interactive web class, you'll discover how geothermal heating and cooling can draw our energy from the ground beneath our feet for pennies, why your neighbors and homeowners everywhere are making the switch, the secrets to securing utility incentives and tax credits to pay for a large portion of your new geothermal system, and so much more. If you want to save up to 70% on your energy bills, register now for this free special event that will show you exactly how to get geothermal heating and cooling installed in your home. Take your next step to create the clean energy future we all want and our children need and deserve. Register now for the free geothermal web class at www.awesomeearthkind.com. That's www.awesomeearthkind.com.